What's up, everybody? It is Izzy back today with a Q&A. Yesterday we took a break. Today we're back at it. So with that said, let's get to the first question here. Thoughts on hanging leg raises? Doug Brignol says they're bad for abs. Well, here's the thing, man. Just go do a set of 20 to 30 reps of hanging leg raises and then tell me where you feel it. And that should be the end of the discussion. Like the end of the discussion. Imagine needing an influencer to tell you whether or not hanging leg raises are an ab exercise. Should you fully extend your arm on single arm preacher curls? Well, here's the thing. This is like the third or fourth question that you've asked me about the relative safety of preacher curls. You've probably seen, who knows, a dozen plus videos of me fully extending my arm on preacher curls. So at this point, what you're not looking for is an answer. You're looking for permission to do something different than what you're doing, or reassurance in some way that what you're doing is safe. But let me just take this in a completely different direction. You need to learn to trust yourself, or you're never going to go beyond intermediate status. If there's something about preacher curls that's waking you out, stop doing them. If there's something about fully extending your arm that doesn't feel right when you're doing single arm preacher curls, then don't fully extend your arm. At some point, you got to try things, form your own opinion, and then trust yourself. Should I cut out my extra steps during a deload? No, that probably won't help you. If you're used to doing the amount of steps that you're currently doing, they likely aren't adding any significant amount of fatigue. In my experience, you don't really get significant fatigue added until you're above 20,000, 25,000-ish steps a day, like someone who's a personal trainer or something and is up and walking around the gym all day. That, in that instance, cutting some steps during a deload can potentially help. But when we're talking about a very normal human amount of steps per day, like 10,000, I would not go out of my way to stop like walking my dogs as much on a deload. That's completely unnecessary and maybe even unproductive. So yeah, keep your steps in and don't worry about it at all. What do you think is a reasonable amount of grip work in terms of doing max time holds? I'm going to go ahead and assume that this is for powerlifting purposes specifically, because if you're just training grip for the sake of enjoying training grip, I am the wrong person to ask. Not only do I have no clue, because I've never even done grip training like that myself ever, I also don't care because I think grip is weird, like a really weird subgroup of lifting that people get super deep into. However, for powerlifting, you're going to want to use the smallest volumes that you can, and the number one reason for that is because max time holds rip your hands to shreds, and this affects the volume that you can do on the competition deadlift without straps. You do too many timed holds and everything has to be with straps. So I like to do hold a single for 10 seconds, the sub-max single of the day, and then maybe on the last deadlift breath of the day, you can do max time hold. Does your cutting and bulking advice also apply to teenagers? So here's the thing. Teenagers is a huge age group. It's 13 to 19, right? So if we look at the different stages of puberty using the Tanner model, somebody who's 13 could be in Tanner stage 1 puberty, and somebody who's 19 could potentially be in Tanner stage 5 puberty, which is like the last final stage. Anybody below Tanner stage 3 or in Tanner stage 3, which is the growth spurt phase, I would not be recommending that these kids be cutting and bulking. No, they should be getting a steady stream of nutrition. You can focus on food quality, but eating should be done according to hunger, in my opinion. And that's because you don't want to risk any situation where you are stunting growth and development in terms of height, but other things as well, because you're trying to reduce body fat at a critical stage of their actual overall development. You can save that for when they're older and in Tanner stage 4, 5, and beyond. Do you think training quads 3 times a week is too much in a specialization phase? So some people can train quads 3 times or more per week, and some people can't. It's individual. You're just going to have to try and see. It's largely going to depend on how strong you are. That said, I feel like for most of you, specialization phases are just you trying to feel like you're doing something cool. Like you want to do something complicated. I don't run specialization phases. Like, for example, Dave, I'm pretty sure Dave doesn't run specialization phases. Dave is 280 pounds or whatever it is. Like, you most likely don't even need specialization phases because you're not big enough anywhere. But if you want to do one, man, sure, go for it. Just, you'll have to try and see. Do you think people judge you, avoid you, or stereotype you in a negative way because of your size? So I'm going to have like people screaming bloody body dysmorphia, but I'm not big. So you guys have to understand that the average person who doesn't lift weights doesn't put things into relative perspective. They're not going to go, oh, 235 pounds at 5'7", that's huge. They're just going to go, that's a 235, 240 pound man, of which there are many and of which they see them every single day. I don't look like a bodybuilder, like a pro bodybuilder. I don't have pro bodybuilder size. I don't have pro powerlifter size, and I don't look like an NFL player. A guy who's like 6'5" and relatively smaller than me, but he's like 280, 290, that person is going to get more of that than I do. Thoughts on mouth taping and nasal strips for better sleep? Well, it's just not going to help anything unless you have some sort of breathing obstructions. So, for example, when people have very mild sleep apnea, sometimes they can get an orthodontic mouthpiece that pushes their lower jaw forward and it expands basically like the hole, your throat hole that air goes into, and makes it less likely for you to have an obstruction while you're sleeping. So, yeah, taping your mouth shut and then using a nasal strip on your nose, I guess, to force you to breathe through your nose. I'm pretty skeptical that's going to make any difference whatsoever for anybody unless they have some sort of an obstructive breathing disorder, in which case it may or may not be enough depending on how severe that disorder is. I already have Olympic lifting shoes. Is it worth experimenting with further heel elevation for quad biasing? Yes, it is. Personally, I use Olympic lifting shoes plus an insert. So my Olympic lifting shoes already have over a 1-inch effective heel height, and then I add an insert from VersaLifts that increases that another 3/4 of an inch. If you have longer limbs relative to your torso, it's very likely that a standard Olympic lifting shoe will not be enough heel elevation for you personally. So do more. Do you use caffeine? If so, how much? So, like many of you, I really enjoy training on stimulants. I feel less pain when I'm on stimulants. I have more motivation when I'm on stimulants. I just like the feeling of being on stimulants. However, for most of the year, I do not use caffeine. And the reason why is at this point, after many years of looking and trying to deny it, I sleep much more when I don't use caffeine. Any amount of caffeine at all in a pre-workout. So they have anywhere from like 150 milligrams to 300 milligrams per scoop. If I stay in that range, under 300 milligrams, it cuts my sleep by about 30 to 45 minutes a night. And I have data on this because I have an Oura Ring and I had a Fitbit before that tracked the amount of sleep I get. When I move up into that 2 scoops region, 500 to 600 milligrams, it cuts an hour to an hour and a half off of my sleep every night. And I've personally come to the conclusion that sleep is more valuable than caffeine for progress. So I save caffeine for when I'm getting really lean and I need the energy boost. I don't use it at all at maintenance or surplus. Any use for Jefferson curls, either in terms of building the erectors or bulletproofing the back? So first of all, anytime somebody says bulletproofing something, you know that's can't bulletproof anything. Even conceptually, like if we're talking about prehab and not me being a pedantic, yeah, there's very limited evidence in the literature for prehab doing anything. I personally think the only prehab you need for your back is to do deadlifts correctly, as far as lifting related prehab, right? If you're doing other sports, you might want to practice being in the positions that you're going to be in that sport to avoid having situations where you're dynamically forced into that position in that sport. That said, as far as building erectors, I don't think this is going to do a better job of building your erectors than heavier variations like an actual stiff leg deadlift or a conventional deadlift. So personally, no, I don't have any use for this exercise. Personally, I have, although also never used it personally, but I also am never going to use it personally. So maybe ask someone that actually has experience with it. Yeah, so I'll just flat out say it. I don't think if it fits your macros, it's a good weight loss diet strategy if you're somebody who struggles with hunger and you're trying to get particularly lean. It's fine to swap out some meals here and there so that you can be social, but if you're going into every day with a blank slate as your meal plan and you're just going to open the fridge and decide what to eat, every single time that you do that, you're going to look at all the tasty food and you're going to have to use willpower to not choose the tasty food. And that will slowly erode your reservoir of willpower throughout the day. And not only that, but when you're choosing in the moment, you're very unlikely to stock and then choose the foods that are going to keep you the fullest. But I can tell you from experience, the level of satiation difference between eating 2 white potatoes and the equivalent amount in cereal or bread is substantial. You will be surprised at how much more success you have in getting actually lean if you stick to foods that keep you full. What is the best pseudo/bro science you've overheard at the gym? To be honest, I have headphones on almost the entire time that I'm at the gym. And I actually don't like hearing these conversations. They upset me. The number one thing, though, that always makes me laugh is just hearing people talk about Tren and how much of it that they take. Because it just blows my mind every single time. You don't need more than 200 milligrams a week of Tren E, for probably any reason. like, it's doing what it needs to do at that dose, and you can get the rest of your anabolic load elsewhere. But routinely, people that are relatively new to cycling are doing 500 to 1,000 milligrams a week of Tren. And I just don't know who started the idea that you need that much Tren, or that much Tren is even beneficial. On that much Tren, I wouldn't even be able to sleep. And I don't think I'd be able to maintain relationships. Not like with a significant other, I mean with like anybody. It's wild. All right, everybody, you know the drill. If you liked the video, please like the video. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I answer all of them as of now. Subscribe if you haven't already. And, of course, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.